Thank you for joining me once again for another day text. We are going through the letter of James, chapter 2, and today we're going to be reading verses 14 through 17. I've put the texts in the description below, along with a note on verse 14 that we might consider, but that you can review separately if you'd like. And then I put a link in the description as well on an article to an article. It's still early. That I did on faith several years ago. So let's get right to it. We're going to start with James chapter 2, verse 14. And then we're going to read through verse 16. We'll make a brief application, talk about a few things, and then we'll be on our way. Okay. So, James chapter 2, verse 14. It states, "My brothers," and remember, he's addressing the brothers in the first century, those who were taking the lead. He's not excluding sisters. They just weren't being addressed in this letter and the way that the brothers taking the lead were. So that's why when you read these kinds of references, that's how you should understand them. Not as exclusionary to the sisters who were also showing faith and doing good things. But they were not doing all the same things, right? The men and the women have different roles, and they work together like different parts of a body so that the whole benefits, not just one individual piece. All right, let's keep going. "My brothers," verse 14, "what good can come from someone who may say he believes for good reasons, but he does not have the works to show it?" Beliefs based on good reasons, or faith, trust, will not save a person. We'll skip the note for now, down to 15. "If your brother or your sister are in need of clothing and have too little food for each day," verse 16, "and if a certain one of you might say, 'Go your way in peace, be warm, and eat until you are satisfied,' but you do not give them what they need to be safe and satisfied, what is the point?" Verse 17, "In the same way, beliefs based on good reasons, or faith, if it does not have works, it is dead to itself." Now, in tomorrow's day text, the verse groupings, we're going to talk more about the translation of the word pistis, or the verb pistuo, as involving beliefs based on good reasons, not just belief or faith or trust. We'll show in one of the verses tomorrow how that translation, belief, faith, even trust, doesn't really always work or capture the full extent of meaning that I believe is contained in some of these expressions. So we'll get into that a little bit more tomorrow, or you can take a look at the article I wrote back in 2010. I've linked it below on pistis, or faith, so you can consider that as well. But we'll talk about it more tomorrow. Well, let's get back to some of these examples here. So we can see clearly in verse 14, it's very plain that beliefs based on good reasons, or faith, it doesn't save you. Just believing in something to the point to where you accept it, even trust it. You'd have to show trust, but if you in your mind trusted it, that's not enough. It says it right here. It's one of the clearest texts, yet we get so many people, and I know Jack will vouch for this. Most of us can, but Jack has a little more involvement with some people right now who I believe have the position that their faith is sufficient to save them. They get a little more nuanced about it, but the fact is this text states right here that faith will not save a person if it does not have beliefs. Like verse 17 said, "In the same way, belief based on good reasons, or faith, if it doesn't have works, is dead to itself." And look at the example James gives right in the preceding verse. In verse 16, he says, okay, so if one of you knows that one of your brothers or sisters are in need, and they come to you, and you express, basically he's saying, if you express faith, right? If you look at verse 16, The words he uses, go your way in peace, be warm, eat until you are satisfied, that he's using in the mouth of the person who is, in one sense, receiving someone who is in need, but not giving them the things they need. But they have faith that they were going to get them, right? He says, the example says, go your way in peace. That sounds like someone who has confidence. Be warm and eat until you are satisfied. So these are expressions of faith, belief of what will happen. The person who is being exemplified here in telling someone who is in need these things, but not giving them what they need, by their expressions are clearly showing that even though they're not giving them what they need, they think that the person's going to get it. So they clearly are showing faith here in the sense of trusting that the person in need, even though they're not giving them what they need, will get what they need. Go your way in peace. Be warm. Eat until you are satisfied. Of course, this is a person in need, you see. So the faith, excuse me, a little itch in my eye. They're expressing the faith, but they're not showing any works. They're not giving them what they need. So their faith is dead to itself. It's not enough. It's not going to save the person. It says it right there, verse 14, if you believe in the letter of James as a Christian. If you don't, or if you act like you don't, well then that's another discussion, right? We have to convince you of that. But if you accept James, it's very clear here that the faith that you have that saves us must be accompanied by works. It has to, or it's dead. If your faith is dead, trust me, you're not getting life. If your faith is dead, you're not getting life. So your faith should be alive, not just by expressions, but by actions. So sometimes, like the criminal who died on the torture stake or the cross with Jesus, all he could do was give expressions of faith, right? But that's not the case here. Here, clearly the person's not being tortured, who's saying, go your way in peace, and that the one in need. And they could give the person things. The one who was being killed and who was immobile on the torture stake or cross with Jesus couldn't do anything other than what he did. That was the full extent of the faith he could show and the actions he could display, because, as we know, he did address the other criminal. And so those addresses, it wasn't just like this. It wasn't just like the words here, go your way in peace, be satisfied. These are words, right? They're being spoken to someone in need. The criminal who was being killed by Jesus spoke to the other criminal and put him in his place and stood up for Jesus, even though he had nothing to gain, right? I mean, for all he knew, there was no hope at all. They were all dying, even Jesus right there. But there was something about Jesus and the way he was acting while he was being killed that made that one criminal believe in him to the point of expressing rejection to the other criminal and expressing faith and a desire to be with Jesus as they were both being killed together. That's faith. Oh, that's a lot of faith, because how are you going to have so much faith when you're being killed? That's when the person with no faith is done, right? They have no hope anymore. Not that criminal. The criminal who spoke up had hope. He saw enough in what Jesus was doing and his faith as he was dying to do something similar and to have faith in him the same way Jesus had faith in Jah. And so that counts. And so there are times when it's not so much this act you have to do, beyond saying things. If you can't move and you're doing all you can and you're speaking up and standing up for the truth and rejecting, that's faith. That's faith. It's just different from the example here, because there was nothing that criminal could have given Jesus. They were both in need and they were both facing their end. So the kind of faith and expressions that would be meritorious there, or that would be worthy of being considered active faith or good faith, living faith, were the ways that we read about. So in each case, there are different circumstances that we have to consider. And we're not really here to try to judge people about whether they have faith or not. This is for us. You should take this to heart, to yourself, because it can be very easy for us to start judging other people, and then we start looking at their works, and then we make, like the Watchtower sometimes does. They have their own ways, but it becomes a system where you're constantly being evaluated by how much time you put in or how many meetings you attend and these different works, We don't want to be like that. You don't want to be like someone who gets misled and they think they're helping, but they're really hurting because they're judging people in ways that are making it more difficult for them, not less. We want to make it easier for people to show faith. We want to make it easier for them to have a good life if we can, and help those who are in need if they have shortages of clothing or too little food, and we have it to give, then we give it to them. And we don't just wish them well. Sometimes we don't have anything to give. We may have to go out with them and try to find someone who has stuff for us. But when we do, when we have enough, this is what the point is. You're supposed to show it by your actions, not just by your words. When you have the opportunity to do it by more than your words. So these are good texts. Once again, I was really tired. I even wasn't sure if I was going to do the day text today, but I'm trying to commit myself to getting up and getting these things done on a regular basis so that we can build our community, continue to share these thoughts and expressions of faith, build ourselves up in ways that will help us to face the trials that we all have every day. But we also know that there are opportunities for us to do things and to show faith and to help these people who are in need, if we can. That's a good thing. Remember what Jesus did. Remember how much time Jesus spent with the people who were really in need. They needed either the teaching, the faith, or they needed the food. And he gave them whatever he could. And even things that he seemingly couldn't because of his powerful spirit. So we can also call on Jah and do things. Yes, we can. Do not doubt that at all. Every single time I've done it and acted in accordance with what I've asked, I can't think of a time when I haven't received what I would say is an appropriate response. So I try never to doubt. And even if I don't get what I kind of want or think about, it doesn't matter. I know Jah knows better than me. So I don't get worried, even though we all want things. I don't get worried when it comes to how it will happen, the thing I'm in need about, because I know Jah knows better than me. See, I may not, or you may not fully understand our need, even though we need it. So this is where the trust comes in. Jah knows. He's the Father who knows. Sometimes we have fathers who know, sometimes our fathers don't know. He knows. That's what he's here for, to watch and to see and to respond to people in need if they're showing faith in him. He does it all the time. The world just doesn't talk about it. They don't care. They want to promote their own selfishness in ways that don't have anything to do with Jah. Fine. Let them have it. Let them have it. They don't have anything that's really worth keeping in life, right? But let people be happy. It's not about wishing ill on anyone. Let them have what they want, but take what you know you need and show faith, not just by belief. That's important too, right? We want to make sure we're confident in our views, but you have to act in accordance with those beliefs, at least to some extent, to show that that's really what you believe. Otherwise, your faith will just become some kind of internal evaluation that you carry with yourself, but you don't really act upon. And that's just not productive in any way. It's kind of like the people who keep asking the same question. 10 years go by and they'll be asking you the same thing. That's what it will lead to. See, it will lead to this disposition within yourself that never really activates, but that has an interest. You want to know, you kind of want to be involved, you're doing things, you ask these questions. Questions are fine. I'm talking about the repeated question, same thing over and over, 10 years later, never change. Okay, that they're not growing, they're not active, their faith is either stalled or dead because they're not acting in accordance with it. They keep asking the same question again and again. How could you have faith when you don't even know the answer to the question? But yet I think most of us do. We just like asking the question. And so it's okay at times. We do need to ask questions to get further strengthened, build up our confidence in what we believe, but not all the time. In fact, if you're asking questions unnecessarily, I think it will interfere with your faith. You can't do both simultaneously. Not really. You can't be walking around as a person of faith who has these confident beliefs. You may not know everything. We don't, but we have enough beliefs, like with the driving example, to act upon them. But if you're just constantly questioning things, or you displace the things you really believe that would lead to the faith that shows itself by works, and in place of that, you substitute this question and that you use it to constantly entertain your mind and busy yourself with others instead of manifesting faith, what are you really doing? You're destabilizing active faith, your own and other people's, because of your refusal to act upon the answer to the question you keep asking, if it's that simple. And then you do it to the other people who already know in their minds the answer to the question. It's not a problem for them. But then because you still have this question, you keep asking it, and now they're asking it, and they already answered it. But you keep asking it, and so they're dealing with it because of your question. You see what I'm saying? Even a person of faith can get sidetracked by someone who doesn't have faith, but they have a question that they've been asking for 10 years or more, and you've already answered it. So that you don't need to distract yourself with those kind of things if you've already addressed them in ways that the person shouldn't even be asking. They can if they want, but do you really need to take away from your active faith to deal with a question that someone has asked and asked and asked and that you've already answered? You don't. You may, sometimes we do need to help people, and even if we've answered a question many times, maybe they didn't hear it. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the people who have a state of mind. They can't get out of it. They love the question. That's really their whole belief system, is this question, because they never really promote the answer. It's always the question. So be aware of that. Be careful. Sometimes we fall into that trap, but these kinds of things can keep you from activating your faith or keeping it active and promoting belief. Belief based on good reasons, the best. Faith. That's what we promote. Not the question that suggests we don't even know what to believe yet. Right? We've progressed far beyond that, at least in most respects. Certainly the three things. And that's why I try to keep it simple. Right? The more requirements we make, the more questions we're going to have to ask over longer periods of time, and then it will keep us distracted from the main things. So I try to just keep it focused on those to the extent that I can. And I've been able to accomplish more, I believe, since I've been doing that, than the kind of broader ministry that before the three things in the Christian Witnesses of Jah I was getting involved in, because either the Watchtower or other religious groups just promoted more than the three in ways that you felt you had to deal with if you were going to be a part of any discussion with a person of a different religion or faith. So, but I don't have to do that with the three things. You don't have to do that. We don't have to go getting into arguments about the different other beliefs. You can, but are you sure it's more important than the three? It's up to you, and it's up to me. And so I choose the three. Occasionally I'll get off onto other things, but I try to always relate it back to the three, because my faith is most solid and active when I'm confident in what I believe. Not things like prophecy and chronology that are meant to be fulfilled and understood after they occur. All these people love to try to figure out these things, and I understand. But we already know these things, these three, and we understand. So why spend our time trying to promote things we don't really understand or that are more difficult to understand when we have the most important things clear as day spelled out for us in the scriptures, and we can promote belief in Jah, the God of history, the God of Moses, all these people, and Jesus, the one who came in Jah's name. We can prove it. We can show it based on texts written before he came. And then everything else, of course, that he did and that people wrote about changed the whole world. And we can understand exactly why, because of what he did. That's what I want to promote. That's what I want to teach others about. Because I know if I can connect their faith and belief to Jah and to Jesus and to treating others the way we want to be treated, Now I believe that person will be productive. I think they'll have within them the core elements of faith necessary to weather the storm and to avoid discussions that might not be as productive. So that's why I try to focus on those three, infuse them into people's beliefs so that they will have them as an anchor and not so easily be blown about, as the scriptures say. So in any case, that's a good discussion of faith. And we're just getting started. We have a lot of texts. I just grouped these 4 today. I'm trying to pace ourselves so that we can have a productive discussion about all these things and get ourselves ready, right? Some of these things we know, some we forget, but when we reread them, they have an effect. And they motivate us to do the very things they're talking about. Promote good works, belief, trust, the kind that shows itself by your actions. It's a must. Otherwise, as the text says, it won't save you. And all of us want to be saved, of course, but I don't think about it too much. I just try to do what I do. Focus on Jah. Promote Jesus and the truth about him. Don't let any of these liars or people who dislike him or what he stands for get in your way. And then the fair standard that he promoted and that we accept, the golden rule. Those things are great. Any opportunity I have to reasonably discuss them with people, I'm ready for. So that's what faith is about. Having the belief and trust so much that you're ready to act it out.